Hi, everybody. This is Hyperwave. Sorry for the inconvenience. I am absolutely terrible at Zoom and still trying to figure it out, but I will very soon. That I can promise. And so we are 30 minutes after the weekly close, which, to be honest, then we even have more data. But yes, we are below the phase 2 line. And so with that said, and because we're a bit late and I take full responsibility, so I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to change it over to Ty, who's actually wearing a really cool hoodie. So, Ty, hit us off.
There it is. Don't tell me what to buy. Tell me when to buy it. That's been our mantra, and it still is. This is a very odd day. We're sitting here $500 below the phase 2 line. We've been there for 3 or 4 days. I kept saying how resilient the phase 2 line is. So every day I keep expecting to see prices running right back up or crashing down, and neither happened. We've stayed in a tiny, tiny trading range between 5,200 and about 5,500, most of it between 5,300 and 5,400 on Bitstamp. But here we are. This is a weekly close below the phase 2 line. That's the end of the hyperwave. So what we need to do today is we need to explain what the heck that means. And I'm going to use a number of charts to show what that means and try to answer a bunch of questions that have been coming in about what happens if we get below the phase 2 line on a weekly basis, but then we don't go down to 1,000. Or what happens if we go close below the phase 2 line and then next week go back above the phase 2 line on a closing basis? And a number of other questions like that. And since in all the examples I've ever seen, I've never seen that happen, it's going to be difficult to answer, but we're going to try. And I want to make this sort of as clear as possible. And the way I'm going to do it is by pulling up some charts. And we will do this one. Showing the close 30 minutes ago on this candle and the opening of the new one below the phase 2 line. Now, people have been asking, where is that phase 2 line so we can look at it together? I'll blow this up. This is the hyperwave phase 2 line, and here is 6116 on the line. We closed at 55.42 approximately. Next week, we're at about 61.74, but it doesn't matter. The phase 2 line is now invalidated. It is not there anymore. It looks like it's there, but it's not there. Just as you don't see a phase 3 line anymore. There used to be a phase 3 line going up here. It's not there anymore. So that's it. Good night. No, that's not fair. We got to talk this through because this is some interesting stuff. Back in 1948, T.S. Eliot won the Nobel Prize for Literature. And he did it for the body of his work, but basically what everybody remembers him for are the 4 lines that are considered the most quoted lines of any 20th century poet in English. And if you're not up on T.S. Eliot, it comes from his poem called The Hollow Men, which he wrote in 1925. But in any case, the 4 lines, after watching this last 4 days, this is what came to mind. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. And that's just what we've seen for the last 4 days. I thought that when we dropped down so sharply below the bottom of this triangle, and we dropped so sharply below my phase 2 line, and I gave all my speeches about these lines are unbelievably resilient, so we should shoot back over it. And who knows where we'll go, but we'll come back down and bounce off it again and again. And finally, it will probably break because that's what phase 2 lines do. This one, we just drifted for 4 months over to the phase 2 line, took a quick look, Fu Manchu pulled the lever, we dropped down to 5,200, 800 points below the phase 2 line. And that was it. That's all she wrote. We've able to work our way from that low over the last 3 days back up to this mid 5,500 level, but absolutely no elasticity, no resilience, no buying coming in. Even this volume candle is unimpressive to me. The day that it happened, it looked very impressive. But now that a whole week has gone by, compare that to these others, and we have basically simply drifted below the surface of the waters with barely a whimper. I wish I had something brilliant to say about what this means, but to me it means we're on our way down to 1,000 with no way out. Now, what I'm going to show you, I'm going to start with some hyperwaves. I'm going to show you about 7 of them. First of all, let's look at the whole hyperwave. This is the whole hyperwave from the beginning through the phase 2, the phase 3, the phase 4, go away. The break on the phase 5, the phase 6 back up that caught a lot of people, and the long phase 7, which we are still in, and by today's closing action, there's no more hope of the price staying up and going higher until we get back to 1,000. Now, you've heard a bunch of people, Willy Woo, Tone, Ben Zen, many others, Peter Brandt, recently, Hai-Jin Lee, I've listened to Phil Cohn. Nobody's saying 1,000. Everybody thinks somewhere around this 4,900 we're going to be able to hold. Most people believe 3,000 looks like the perfect place because of all this stuff back over here on the left. Hyperwave says that's not correct. Hyperwave says that we're going to 1,000. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell us when we're going to get there. So just get a mental picture of what we're looking at here. And now I'm going to show you some all older, but this is Columbia Gas and Electric from 1924 through 1935. It's 11 years. And notice that we're starting down around $25 and we run up to 140, then we drop down, we run from $25 up to 350. Then there was some stock splits, and that's why these numbers are different. Then we had the 5, the 6, and the 7, all the way back to where we began. And I've got 100 and some odd charts that look just like this. I'm just going to show you a couple because now, from me to you, from Leah and I to you, we're going to be examining what is probably going to happen for the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years. And we're going to do that on the basis of what we've seen other hyperwaves that did not become funky. And this one did not become funky as of 40 minutes ago. If it had held the phase 2, we then had the possibility of going into a funky hyperwave. We no longer have that. So you're taking a look at one particular company. Remember, the whole stock market, the Dow, the S&P, did the same thing over these same years you're looking at here. But I want you to see what happened after we came down and came down and came down and got lower than we started. We went sideways for 1, 2, 3, 4 years. That's important. Because now look at the next chart. This is city service.
Hey, Tyler.
Excuse me?
Tyler, Tone jumped on the stream.
Oh, wonderful. Great, Tone. I'm just going through, the conclusions I've just drawn are: 1, the hyperwave is over, we're going to 1,000. There's no more chance for funky hyperwaves at either phase 3 or phase 2. Number 3 is we don't know how long it's going to take to get there. We could do it quickly. We could take a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But in my work, that's where we're going. So I'm going through a series of about 8 charts that show different aspects of a phase 7, starting with this one, which is Columbia Gas and Electric from 1924 to 1935. So it goes through a hyperwave, very clear: 1, 2, 3, 4 up, 5 down, 6 up, 7, all the way back down to the beginning. But then it stays there for 4 years. Now look at the second one. I'll show these a number of times because they're
no, Tyler, I remember all of them. We covered them all the first time I ever had you on my YouTube channel, and we introduced Hyperwave to my followers. I remember all of them.
Well, I've added a bunch of new ones today. So
I remember the old ones.
Yeah, they all look the same except in the 7th phase. So this is city service, looks very, very similar to what we just looked at, which was Columbia Gas and Electric. It's almost impossible to tell the difference except the prices over on the sides, but the movement exactly the same: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back below phase 1. And this one also went for 1, 2, 3, 4 years before it could do anything. Now look at this one. This is called error reduction. Did the same thing as those others, coming up as it should. Big long 5, up 6, 7, back down to the beginning. But look what happens immediately after it gets to where it's going. In this case, just assume this is 1,000 on Bitcoin. It immediately started up. Those first 2 did not. They stayed down for 4 years going flat. This one takes off immediately into a large accelerated move, which actually goes all the way to 1937, where we had another bear market and a recession. But by that time, this one had gone to new highs. Take a look at this one. This is called International Harvester, which is like the Caterpillar or the Deere today, agricultural, building huge agricultural machines. One goes back to 1922, 2, 3, 4 up, 5 down, 6 up, doesn't get back to the high, all the way back down to the beginning. Now this one starts up almost immediately. In the first year, it goes sideways, but then it starts up, pulls back, goes higher and higher and higher. Not nearly as powerful as this one, but it did start up right from the bottom. It didn't have to wait around like those first two. This one I wanted to show because it's so unusual, because we have a double top. I've said I've never seen an example where after a 1, 2, 3, 4, we got back up to the top of the 4 after breaking. So maybe this is just a complex top, and this is the 5, this is the 6, this is the 7, but it didn't matter that it took a year to get this double top. The second top is not higher than the first top, so I'm not sure how to read it, but this is called the Packard motor car. Anybody that knows about old cars knows that this was a great car for a while, and then they basically were bought out and went out of business. But notice that even with this kind of a different top, we end up back all the way below the phase 1. And here again, 1932, 33, 34, 35, we barely moved up. This one is very strange because it's not only a very complex top, it's very difficult for me to tell exactly what happened. Vanadium is a mineral, and this is a mineral drilling and usage company. But what actually happened here is all of this was looked like a phase 3, but it broke. To me, that ended the hyperwave. But then what happened is we go up where everybody else did in late 29 to new highs. Then we come down, and either we had a 5-6 or a 5-6 back down to a 7. It doesn't matter with all this noise. We still end up back below the phase 1 line. Now, I haven't talked about this publicly before, except with some of our people on our research group. But what this actually is, this is called a broadening top. And this is a broadening top that occurred basically 20 years before Edwards and McGee defined what this was. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on a broadening top. So what we have here is not only what started out as a hyperwave and ended as a hyperwave, but in the middle of it, up at the top, we had something that I've never seen before in any other hyperwave, which was this broadening top, and it kind of screwed things up. One more that all of us have talked about, and this is the best chart I've been able to find. This is called the South Sea Bubble from 1719 to October of 2022. It actually started to break down in October of 2020, and this is monthly chart, and not very specific, and I can't trust anything in terms of the dollars over here. No, we just don't have the records going back that far. But whoever put this together, I found it interesting because we have a clear phase 1, then a phase 2, then a phase 3, into a phase 4. We don't get a 5, 6, 7. We just get 6 months of sideways action right at 1,000 pounds, up from the beginning of 100. So we've got a 10x move here, and it ends up all the way back down at the beginning, just like all of the other ones we just looked at. Now, here is our Bitcoin with all the same movements that you've seen on those charts, plus the Japanese stock market, the Dow in 1987, gold and silver in 1979, the dot-com bubble in 1995, 6, 7, 8, 9, 2001, 2, and 3, which turned out to be a funky hyperwave. And a lot of what we're seeing now with a bunch of the FANG stocks, some of which have broken down like Netflix. They've broken from the 4 into a 5, from the 5 into a 6, and now they've started a 6 into a 7. But very few have broken down like this. Bitcoin has broken down, and then once again, so everybody can just see that it's not even close. We just had no bounce at all, but we didn't go down further. I thought for sure if we couldn't get back up to the line, we would drop straight down to that 5,000 area, 4,900 to 5,100. We didn't do that either. After dropping to 5,200 at the low, we were able to struggle back to about 54 to 5,500, and then just went flat for the last 48 hours. No volume, no activity, no sharp selling, no sharp buying, no resilience of the phase 2 line. So no matter how I read these charts, this hyperwave is now fully in its phase 7 without a phase 2 or a phase 3 to bounce off of, and there is no support from a hyperwave perspective anywhere below where we're now sitting. Okay, that poses a number of questions that people have been sending to us over the last 3 days. What would happen if this drops down to, let's say, 4,800 or 3,000 and doesn't go any lower? What would that mean for a hyperwave? Well, for me, what it would mean is this is the first time out of 350 examples that we did not return to the bottom. So does that make it impossible? No, of course not. I'm shocked that we don't see 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 out of 350 that don't have the characteristic that they return to the bottom. It's been sort of embarrassing for me for the last 40 years to have this thing, no matter how many I found, and it didn't matter if it was in Japan or in England or anywhere else in the world, or it didn't matter if it was in the 1920s or 30s or 40s or up till today, they all did the same thing. So am I excluding the possibility that we might not get to 1,000? No. But I will give it a probability of 5%. And
Hey, Tyler?
Yes.
Do you consider the NASDAQ hyperwave returning to the bottom?
No, I think the NASDAQ hyperwave was a funky hyperwave that bounced off of 2 and then started.
Oh, interesting.
Because when you take a look at it, you'll see that the 2 holds on that one. And the same thing happened in the Dow in 1987. 1987, we dropped down 22% in one day, but we never got lower than that Tuesday, and there was huge buying that came in. It happened to be on the phase 2 line. At the time, I didn't know what a funky hyperwave was. So for the rest of 1987 into 1988, and even early 1989, I still thought it had to get back down to $1,000, and it never did. It only
right. So the other question is, sorry, I do want to keep walking along the beaches, so you can see my view right now. It's probably the best views for a cemetery I've ever seen. So I'm gonna flip the camera here. So so my other question is, my other question would be, you don't have any rules we you say it's gonna go to 1,000, give or take $500. I think is reasonable. I think that's within margin of error, but there's absolutely no way of knowing, are we gonna get to 1,000 and stay there for a year, or are we gonna get to 1,000 for about 10 seconds, and by the end of the day, we're back above 3,000? So I think I would say, not to put words in your mouth, but I think the best case scenario is that we form another descending triangle with 3K as the new low, swiftly fall to 1,500 and lower, and within the same week be back above 3K, that could set us up for 50,000 Bitcoin over the next decade.
I agree completely. That's the best case I can see with what I know about Hyperwave, but more importantly, what I know about all of this resistance down at the 3,000 level that you've talked about for a long time, and a lot of other technical analysts think that maybe we can get down that far. But if we do it and form something like a triangle or support like we had at 6,000, where it tries over and over again to get down through it and finally breaks, yeah, we could get a swift drop down and right back up. That's why I showed those other charts that shows that unfortunately in Hyperwave, you don't know how long it's going to take to get there, and more importantly, once it gets there, how long it's going to stay there. We're going to have to use every other tool once we get down below 5,000 to figure out really where it's going. So,
Tyler,
yeah.
so tell me, this, last time we did a show together, curious as to your answer, where do you think that we are on the psychological chart of market cycles?
Because we took so long at 6,000, we are nowhere near capitulation. Nowhere near capitulation. I think we're not even past the fear. We're certainly not at the despair stage. And that's why I still think it's got a long ways to go. There was really no volume on this break. And there should have been. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at that.
Interesting. And actually, let's take this one. We haven't answered it in a while, and then I have one for you, Tone. What other cryptos do you think are in a hyperwave?
None.
The answer is none. Yes.
Maybe Ethereum would come close. Maybe, in my opinion. And that's a big maybe.
Yeah, but yes, the answer is none. Tyler, you wanna talk about this?
I agree completely, and I've been saying that even GBTC was never in a hyperwave, which is very bizarre since it only holds one thing besides cash, and that's Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin was in a hyperwave, why wasn't GBTC? GBTC never made it through a phase 3, and I can argue it never got beyond a phase 2. My explanation for that is because it can move to a big premium or a discount relative to Bitcoin, which acts like a buffer or a suspension system for the price that keeps it from moving the same percentage that we saw Bitcoin move in the same way. So anyway, my feeling is that not a single one I've looked at, and I looked at about 40 cryptocurrencies, hoping to see that on some of these big moves that they were exhibiting anything that looked like hyperwave in terms of the angles. And almost by definition, they couldn't because they weren't around long enough. So they couldn't form these long phase 1s. The ones that were around for a long time never really did anything relative to what Bitcoin and some of the newer ones did in terms of the amplitude that they went up. So in any case, that's where I come down on it, that the only one in the crypto space that has gone through this is Bitcoin, but they're all following Bitcoin down, which makes sense to me.
Tone, do you agree? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. And since I guess I'm on the big screen, I want to do a shout out to my friend Nick, who attended my workshop 2 days ago. And now we're out for a little walk along the coast here in Sydney. It was great. Yeah, no, I agree with all that. Yeah, like the views here are ridiculous. Let me flip the camera.
What's up, Nick, the body surfer?
Do you guys hear me okay?
There we go. Back to Bluetooth.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Can hear you, can't see you.
There you go. Like, is my camera on?
No.
Is my camera on now?
Yeah, there it is. Wow.
There it is.
Fabulous. What's the temperature like?
It's like 85. It's nice. I mean, it's nice and windy. It's not too hot, but you will get a sunburn.
All right, guys. Well, it's 8 p.m., so I'm going to throw in one last question for you, Ty. Tone, for you to answer it after, and then Tone,
cool.
the day and the beauty, and Ty and I, let's get some sleep for tomorrow. So, given hyperwave theory as well, actually, I like this one. At what price point, given what's happening right now, would you become worried about the future, the long-term future of Bitcoin?
I'll answer that first because I'm not at all worried about that. Zero. Even though I've been saying forever that we're going down to 1,000, to me, that's not terminal because I truly believe there won't be any other cryptos around except maybe Ethereum, and maybe if the SEC allows one or two others under the same guise that they're allowing Ethereum to have developed beyond being an illegal security because of different things that have happened. But basically speaking, Bitcoin will be the last one standing, and it will be ready to get much, much stronger. So it does not bother me at all. Every one of the examples I've shown everybody, and we've got 350 of them, none of those went out of business. None of those went out to zero. It just means that the time each one of them had gotten overbought way further than they should have, and they ended up paying the price for it by returning to where they
think, Tyler, I think the South Sea bubble did.
Well, the South Sea real estate is still there, though.
Yeah, no, I second that. So I second that, and not only do I second that, the shit show that we just witnessed in Bcash should strengthen Bitcoin's fundamentals even more, but it's independent of the price.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely with that. What does Nick think about it all?
I don't know. You guys can hear him, Nick. What do you think about? He couldn't hear you guys because I. What do you think about the fundamentals of Bitcoin? Even if we go down to $1,000, Nick, they should be able to hear you through the headphones.
It's still going to serve its purpose or what it's meant to do.
Because look, I'm still using it.
Tone, I think we lost Tone here.
I hope he didn't slip off that cliff.
Yeah, right.
Warning, already being censored on attempting to take fiat payments for unconfiscatable conference. So yeah, Bitcoin ain't going anywhere, guys. It's only going to go stronger.
All right. Well, first of all, Ty.
I've got my hotel room and my flights.
We're
excellent.
All right, I'm gonna end it. Nick, hi. Say hey to Nick. I know Nick.
Leah says hi.
Pretty dope.
Hi, Leah. How you going?
Hey, what's up, man? Okay, yes, Vegas, and then I think that both you guys and Tyler, we haven't talked about the Bcash fork yet, but I think for today, this is a lot of news. Tone has a beautiful view, and we got a lot to cover this week. So I think that this is a wrap. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Tyler?
Yeah, thank you all very much. I'm sorry that this happened. I was hoping we'd get a great bounce, but we did not. So unfortunately, lower prices to come.
Tone, thanks for joining us and showing us some views.
Hey guys, yeah, thank you for having me on. It was great. So I know you guys are gonna be sleeping over in the US, but in about 5 hours, I will do another one of my podcasts in Russian, but then after that, I'll try and sneak in one in English. Wow, don't they supposed to have like barriers to prevent stupid people from like falling off a cliff? I thought we were in a nanny state. That's not good.
A lot of sharks did it. They closed down that
Hmm.
beach this week.
Which one?
Bodie.
It's closed down. No, I think that's Bodie. I can see it in the background there.
Tone Vays.
But I'm literally on the edge of a cliff. Wow, this is cool.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Tone, thanks for joining us.
Yes.
We'll do your next trading show. Have fun today. And I appreciate that both you guys ended on a positive note. I liked asking that question. So
Thank you guys. Glad to be on.
See ya.
bye, Ty.
Bye guys.